Hey everybody, welcome to another Broken Base podcast. This is our fifth one. We're actually turning them out with some regularity now.
Don't get their hopes up.
I'm sorry everybody, I lied to you.
That is the last thing I need with all the editing shit that I'm already have to do.
Okay, so this is the last podcast you're going to have for 2017, I guarantee it. But today we're talking about Undertale.
Finally!
Which is a little indie game some of you may have heard of. Oh, I don't know.
We may have talked about it once or twice.
A couple of times.
So
we've actually been working on this podcast for ages, and we are just getting around to it now. I think the game's been out for what, like...
Well, working on it is, that might be a little bit of an exaggeration. We've been talking about getting podcasts done, and we'll be like, yeah, let's finally get that podcast done. When are you free? 3 weeks from fuck yourself. And it's like, oh, yeah. Awesome. So, yeah, it's been a little back and forthy. And, like, of course, the holidays don't make anything easier. So, like, just trying to get it. Like, we've had this, of course, we talked about it once on, like, the second podcast that we were going to do an Undertale podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And then, like, that never happened just because we were trying so hard to, like, keep up with stuff. And, of course, you guys saw the Nintendo Switch podcast that came out the other day, and that's just, like, you know, that's time-sensitive stuff. So, like, I killed myself. We recorded that podcast on Thursday, and we got it out Friday. And, like, that, I mean, that's fine. Like, that's the sort of stuff that, as the guy who, like, edits the podcast, I understand that. Like, I know I have to do that. Doesn't make it any less shitty, though. So this one, you know, we can take our time with. We can relax, which is nice.
Have a good time, which is what Undertale is all about.
No, Undertale is all about having a bad time. That's what the references are.
No. We're not talking about genocide right now. Should we start with how that game came out? There was no press for it, and neither of us knew what the fuck it was.
No, I had... So, like many things... in my life, I learned about it and immediately dismissed it after seeing it on Tumblr. I had no idea what this game was, and for me, it was interesting because I've never cared about Earthbound. I think I played that game for 20 minutes when I was way too young to appreciate an RPG like that, and I've never gone back. So when I say I don't care about it, that's kind of harsh. I don't have any emotional connection to it. So seeing a game that was basically like a funny Earthbound didn't really make any sense to me. And of course, I saw it through the lens of Tumblr, which is not always rose-tinted. So it was really this game I had no idea about. I didn't understand why people cared about it. And then, for me at least, I watched Video Game Donkey's video, and that's when I legitimately started to care about it.
I remember having a conversation with you about it, and I was like, yeah, everybody's talking about Undertale. I assumed it was a horror game. I didn't even know what genre it was, because it released in October.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, everybody's doing Let's Play of a new horror game. It's fine. And then you told me that I had to play it because you had gotten into it. And by that time, I think it was like December or January. It'd been out for a couple of months.
Did you...
And I'm glad I did.
Did you have to, like, were you avoiding spoilers? Because, like, I watched the Donkey video, and I, in some ways, had a lot of it spoiled. Like, there was still a lot that he didn't show, but, like, I knew about Photoshop Flowey before the fight. Which is, like, I never really had a problem with that, because I was, like, I think for me, the thing about spoilers is that if I had cared and then was spoiled, like, if you're spoiled about something that, like, if I had been spoiled about the new Star Wars movie, like how that ended, I would have been pissed. But at the time, I didn't know if I would ever play Undertale, so I didn't mind that I had it spoiled. And that was just one ending, so it's not like I never knew what the true pacifist ending was going to be like before I got there.
I had the Sans fight spoiled, but I played pacifist, so I never even encountered that. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess if you're one of the two people on the internet who hasn't played Undertale, it's this sort of quirky... I hate the word quirky now. Quirky is so fucking overused.
But it's so quirky. It really is.
It's so quirky. It's this pseudo like turn-based RPG where it's got like some bullet hell shooters, but the big thing about it is that one, the story is fucking amazing, and two, it's possibly the only RPG ever made where you don't have to kill anything. And the game is, for me at least, the game was built more around not killing things than anything else. Like, I went through, and I think the only reason I didn't get True Pacifist on my first run was I just didn't know to go back and complete some of the optional events.
Yeah.
So I don't think I killed anything on my first playthrough. I might have killed like an occasional monster. I can't remember what Sans said, but it felt like the game was being played, quote, properly when you went through and you tried to figure out the puzzle as to clearing this monster.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can play it traditionally like an RPG, but for me, it was much more interesting as sort of like a pseudo puzzle RPG hybrid thing.
Yeah, it was so unique, just the battle mechanic itself, and trying to the bullet hell dodging the enemy attacks, but also interacting with the enemy, and every single monster had its own personality.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever seen a video game with that much attention to detail for every single creature you encounter.
Yeah, and that's one thing, that's one reason why I think the game is, people can talk about the characters and the story, and we'll be talking about the characters and the story shortly, but I think one thing that is kind of underrated within the game is just the fact that every new monster has its own pattern, not just for attacking, but for non-lethally clearing the fight as well. And then on top of that, you get different combinations of monsters as the game goes on, and they all have special combos that work together. So it's just like, not only is every monster getting its own attack pattern and fight sort of rules, but they also have combinations with other monsters. So it's just, I can see that if you played through the game as like a regular RPG and just killed everything in your path, it would get pretty boring. But the way that it's structured, it keeps things interesting, and it's hard to describe because it keeps things interesting, but it does so in a way that's fun and it fits the style and tone of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also helps that the game is also pretty short, so it can keep things changing up throughout the game without getting stale, without like putting you through a slog of, okay, I have to go through this enemy again and not kill it.
Yeah, I think there's only a couple portions of the game that go on a little too long. I remember my first time going through Snowden took forever, just because I would constantly get random encounters. Yeah, there were a couple slogs, I think Hotland or Heatland.
Yeah, Hotland definitely goes on a little too long.
But it's we can nitpick and pick and prod and all that fun stuff. And
yeah.
But that's so minor. Like, there's so many like genuinely amazing moments from this game that at first glance you would literally never expect.
Well, seriously. And I think a lot of that is the art style. I think that's kind of like why we both dismissed it a little bit, because it's so simplistic. You could tell it was made by a lot of it was done by Toby Fox himself. I think and he's very much an amateur artist.
So Toby Fox and Temmie Chang are the only two people who worked on Undertale, to my knowledge. And I know that Temmie Chang was mostly like additional art. I think Braddy and Caddy were two designs by her. And then, of course, Temmie. But otherwise, I don't know specific, like, how things worked out specifically. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Toby Fox did, like, at least 75% of everything.
Yeah, and he's stated multiple times that he is not an artist. So you have this simplistic art style that doesn't really immediately convey that, okay, there's something deeper going on here. There's a lot of thought put into this.
Not even just something deeper, but something like you legitimately care about this goofy 8-bit skeleton after like an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a lot of that. I mean, I love the art style. Like, don't get me wrong, but I think we're getting to a point where I'm cynical enough to look at anything pixel art and be like, okay, you played games when you were 8, and now you're gonna churn out some shitty 8-bit game because that's what you saw when you like. I'm tired. Of course, that I'm not saying that I don't like pixel art. I see so much of that.
There's so much of it.
There's so much of it, and Undertale, I would never say that Undertale's art style is generic, but like, so even the idea of doing like an 8-bit game is kind of generic at this point for an indie game. But Undertale uses its art style not as just, a goofy catalyst for jokes and characters, but like, I genuinely think it's the simplicity that makes it so easy to latch onto. And that's not something you could ever understand from watching a trailer.
No,
that's not...
Absolutely not.
You can't get that from a minute and a half of footage that's cut together from random scenes throughout the game. So it's... When it comes to the game's art style, I don't know if I ever had an issue with it. I'm trying to think. There are a couple enemies that are a little hard to make out. I think Shiren is the only character I still don't understand what she looks like all the way.
Oh, yeah, I get that. I think having played it, I don't have any qualms with the art style now. Maybe some of the overworld sprites could have been a little more detailed, but that's just, sacrificing that for the art style itself.
Do you have any specifics?
Papyrus. His overworld sprite I never liked.
It's his front on, like, standing there neutral pose, I think is fine. But, like, a lot of the others don't. Like, his one where, like, his scarf is blowing in the breeze, it looks like it was done by a different artist. Like, yeah. So I get that. I can't think of anything. I kind of wish that, like, the battle screen, those sprites were in color. I know they have colored versions, like, I think in the code, and, like, when you go back and if you encounter them outside of a fight, they'll be in color. But yeah, like, Shiren is kind of hard to decipher without color. Like, she just looks like a couple blobs stuck together in black and white, and it's like, if you do her non-lethal run, you get a better idea of what she looks like, but it's still really hard to sort of piece together what's going on there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, otherwise, I mean, if we're talking about art style, then you cannot talk about Undertale's art without talking about the music. Because,
oh, yes.
Holy shit. This Undertale soundtrack is quite possibly one of my all-time favorites. Like, I'll still hold themes like Old Snake, the Metal Gear Solid 3 theme, the Halo theme. Like, those are, like, intrinsic to my gaming experiences. But, like, all, like, looking at it as a whole, like, the Undertale soundtrack is, like, fucking phenomenal. Like, unbelievably phenomenal.
Like, even after a year, I'm still listening to it regularly.
Oh, yeah. Like, we were talking about it a couple weeks ago. Like, my whole theme this winter, I just play... I switch between the Snowden Town theme and the Snowy theme, which are motifs on the same musical style. And it's perfect. Like, it captured... Those two tracks specifically captured the feel of, like, winter and cold. And it's not in, like, the generic way. Like, it stays within that Undertale style, which is an 8-bit sort of tribute. I mean, it's definitely more than what you could have gotten on, like, an NES or a Master System, but it all feels cohesive, and yet it does such a good job at creating these distinct atmospheres and emotional throughways that it's fucking good.
Hey, even character themes like Papyrus's theme and his battle theme, they sound like Papyrus.
Yeah.
They fit his character so well.
It's bouncy and goofy, and it's sort of off the wall, and it's slightly obnoxious. Like, Bone Trousel is kind of annoying, but it's kind of annoying in the best way possible. And then you get, going off of Papyrus, when you get to Megalovania, you have a song that starts off kind of slowly, that intro, I don't know musical terms, but that first couple seconds where it's kind of slow and underplayed, and then it just all of a sudden it fucking kicks up to 1,000,000. Like, that's Sans. I mean, because up until that point, and it's only on the Genocide run, up until that point, Sans doesn't do much. I mean, he introduces you to a lot of the world, but like, it's not until that specific point that he decides to fuck your day up. And it's legitimately like that throughout the entire game. Like, even something as I didn't put this together for months until after I played it, but there's a ghost that you meet. His name is Napstablook, and he's got a very goofy kind of off-kilter theme. And then you later go up, one of the boss fights later in the game is you go up against a dummy that's been possessed by a ghost. And their two songs are, again, it's like Snowy and Snowden Town. They're riffs on the same track, I guess. And it's like, oh, it's because they both involve ghosts. They're not the same song, they're different. And like, one is clearly meant to be a boss fight, and the other one is clearly meant to be like a character piece. But it's just like, the idea that, you know, connecting those two themes together in such a subtle yet sort of obvious way is you don't see that. You just don't see that level of detail in any soundtracks. I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen that sort of riff on itself in any other game soundtrack I've ever played.
I mean, you want to talk connections, all the variations of his theme. You want to talk about his theme, Steven?
No. But that's another thing. I hear there's on my SoundCloud, there's a version of his theme that's played on like a music box or piano or something, and it's like, okay, I'm just going to start crying now. That's what's going to happen. And it's like, I don't know if there's any game series that evokes that sort of immediate response. Even games that I consider like my personal favorites, like Metal Gear Solid and Halo and a third game that I really love, but I'm too tired to think of. It's not an immediate response. There's always going to be a response to those games, but like Undertale, it's this immediate, visceral response, and I don't get that from other games.
No, not like that. You can tell Toby Fox has been doing music for a long time. Yeah. He did music for Homestuck, or he might still be doing it for Homestuck. I think
no, Homestuck ended.
Oh, did it? Oh god, I
don't know. I tried to get into Homestuck like it's 4 times, long. And it's so long, and it's so fucking tedious to read through. I don't care. I don't fucking care. So, but yes, he did music for Homestuck, and then he did music for that Earthbound ROM hack, I think.
Oh yeah, I think that's where Megalovania originated. Like an early version of that.
The beta version of Megalovania was supposed to be for the final boss fight of the Earthbound hack, but I don't think he ended up using it.
No, I don't think so.
But it's okay, because Megalovania is a fucking amazing track, so...
Absolutely.
Like, goddamn.
How many fan albums, and even a couple of official fan albums have been made already, and were made right after the game's release?
Yeah, it's just, the music is that amazing. Like, it's not, oh yeah, the soundtrack's pretty good. No, it's fucking phenomenal. It's I would go so far as to say it is unparalleled. Like, there is nothing else, and I've been playing games for 25 years now, close to it. There is nothing in all of that time that I have ever looked at, maybe a Final Fantasy game. Like, Nobuo Uematsu is a fucking genius, and I would put Toby Fox and his Undertale work on that same level. Like, they're very different, but they're both just, they're genius level composers, even if they don't want to admit. Like, I can assume that Toby Fox is probably a pretty reclusive guy, so even if he doesn't want to, he's fucking good. He's fucking good. Accept it. Accept a compliment from a stranger that you have never met nor will ever meet, probably. I mean, I would be up to meeting him. I don't want to sound like I don't ever want to see him. I mean, he sounds like a nice guy.
I don't know if I would, man. I don't know what I would say.
I would probably try to make an Undertale pun, but it would be too quiet. I'd be like, let go of that bone. I was like, hey, did somebody...
He just fall down a bunch of stairs. It's like, okay, that was Steve. But
Yep. That's how I typically handle, like, interactions with celebrities. I've met a few, like, high-profile celebrities over the years, and I'll just stand there, like, dumbstruck, like, you're a person I know from the thing. And they're like, hey, do you want to say something intelligent? No.
It's weird because you keep using the same line, let go of that bone. It's really weird.
Even before Undertale came out, let go of that bone. Stanley's like, what? What are you doing in my house?
Oh, boy.
So I think we've put it off long enough. The story of Undertale.
Holy
and
shit.
I don't mean, like how this game got made, because I don't know enough about that to talk about it. But the story, the narrative in Undertale is so good on so many levels.
It's so, like you said, on so many levels. It's so layered. It's so well crafted to the point where it's deceptive.
Yeah.
Like, it's not until you beat the game fully on full pacifist and you see a genocide run, if you're a coward like me.
And me.
That you fully understand and appreciate. Like, Toby Fox put a lot of effort into this.
And it's not just that he put a lot of effort into it. It's that, like the music, it's just so fucking good. Like, you can put a lot of effort into something and it's still a pile of shit.
Yes.
Look at any of the Star Wars games of the last 10 years. I'm sure somebody put work into those, and they're all garbage.
Oh, God. But it's so well crafted. This world is so alive, and there's such a deep lore to it. Is
the idea that he was able to do that, to make it feel like such a real place. I mean, real is kind of a weird term to use, but it feels so real and these characters feel so alive. And to say that about a goofy cartoon skeleton and his younger brother, or the cow mom, or a flower that turns out to be evil and shoots bullets at you, or this fucking weird lamp-shaped kid, like, to connect to something like that, something that's so far removed from anything in our reality, and to be able to connect on a genuine emotional level like that that's just amazing. Like, there's no, I'm getting all excited. Getting verklempt. It's one of those examples of something that you could never do in anything other than a game.
Yes.
Like, not only is Undertale, it makes jokes and references to the fact that it's a game, but there's no way you could have created that sort of emotional through line. If you had watched like an Undertale animated short that used the same assets and the same art style and the same music, you wouldn't connect to it like you do playing through it. Like, it was always meant to be a game, and that is how it's meant to be experienced, and that's where you're going to get that emotional connection. And again, to do that with a fucking the dog in a suit of armor that's head rockets into the sky as you pet it. Like, to even say that sentence is absurd. The fact that I like genuinely connected to this game is on an entirely different level.
And just the variety of emotions within the story itself, like the crazy flower that tries to kill you immediately in the game. Oh, it's that same flower is going to piss me off, like genuinely get me upset at the climax, or that flower is actually going to make me cry at the end of the game when I find out why he's trying to kill me. What's his issue?
Yeah, and then like to go from that, like Photoshop Flowey and just Flowey in general, pissing you off to such a degree. And then you have fucking Papyrus throwing himself out a window after he gets you and Undyne in the same room together. And it's not even like, there's no animation. It's just his sprite crashing through a window. And it's like, it's so fucking hysterical.
I think I laughed for a solid minute. The timing on that is so good.
It's so good. And like, even Alphys being a fucking anime nerd, a weeaboo, like, that's just, like, to hit all of those notes and to hit them so well, you have to fight a gay robot for like an hour. And that's a spectrum of emotion. Like,
yeah.
Like,
well, even Alphys being this anime weeaboo nerd, you look at her lab and it's clear she doesn't get any work done. And you see a bunch of letters on a table that she just hasn't read. It's like, okay, because she's a slacker, she's busy watching anime. And then you find out, and I'm not going to spoil it right now, but you find out why she hasn't read these letters. And it's this genuinely horrible, this sad moment.
Yeah.
And it completely changes how you think of the character and everything you know about this character.
And even, like I said, when you fight Metaton, yeah, it's sort of goofy and it's over the top and like it's funny, but then you learn more about Metaton, and like I don't know if it's confirmed or if they're fan theories or not, but like people have connected Metaton and the spirit that's inside Metaton to being like Napstablook's brother or cousin or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's been confirmed in the game. You can go to the house next to Napstablook's, and it's not stated
it's
outright,
confirmed,
but it's pretty
not confirmed.
Yeah.
So, like stuff like that, like the game does a fantastic job of adding depth if you're willing to look for it. So stuff like, Papyrus or Sans' room being locked off in Papyrus's house. It's like, oh, he's doing something weird in there. But as you progress through the game and you learn more about what Sans' role in that world is, like, it's like, oh, so there's probably some weird shit going on behind that door, right? So it's just like, the game is just so chock full of those interactions. Like, even one of the fucking enemies, the Snowdrake. And then there's Snowdrake Jr. And, like, there's an actual, like, connection between a dad and his son if you go the true pacifist route. It's like, these are enemies that I literally heckled off the fight screen. And it's just, like, the idea of any game giving more than a second's thought to a character like that is kind of crazy. And Undertale does that with seemingly everybody. Like, I don't know if there's an underdeveloped character in that game.
I don't think
even
so.
The fucking burger guy has character.
Oh, the Burger Pants has so much character.
Burger Pants is amazing. Burger Pants has too much character.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if they will have seen this yet, but if you're watching the YouTube version of this podcast, when I was going back to record footage, I had entirely forgotten about Onion-san.
Oh God.
That was an experience. That's just like a weird part of it. But stuff like that, it sticks out and it's fucking good. I like this game.
Oh God.
That does not look fun on my timeline.
Oh
no,
that didn't sound fun on my ear lines. I'm wearing earbuds. You can't.
So,
ooh.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the endings of Undertale, which obviously we're going to be getting into spoiler territory here. So if you haven't played Undertale, and maybe this 1.5 year late podcast is the final nail in the coffin to get you to try it. If you haven't played Undertale yet, please play it. Just pause this video for like 7 or 8 hours. Go play Undertale and then come back, because
get it on Steam and get the deluxe edition with the soundtrack.
Get the soundtrack.
You'll
the soundtrack is like 100 different tracks. You get
it's
everything.
Fucking ridiculous.
It's fucking ridiculous.
I think you get tracks that aren't even in the game. It's just like, okay, thank you, Toby.
Yeah, pretty much. So please, If you haven't played it yet, go play it, and we're going to talk about the ending, so spoilers. So, for those who don't know and are still here, why didn't you listen to us? There's the standard ending, which is what most people will get on their first playthrough. There is the genocide run, which is the most soul-crushing thing you will ever undertake. And there is the true pacifist ending, which I feel, in my heart of hearts, is the canon ending.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree with you there.
So I think, starting off with the most simple ending, you make your way through the ruins and Snowden Town and Waterfall and... What's after Waterfall?
Hotland,
the core,
and then you make your way to Asgore.
The city. So you make your way to Asgore, and he's the final barrier between you and getting home. And in the standard ending, you fight him. And fun fact, bring healing items for that fight. Because doing it with 20 hit points is not fun. Let me tell you, I spent an hour trying to fight Asgore with no healing items. It didn't work. So you fight Asgore, and I can't remember one way or the other, so you might have to correct me. You fight Asgore, and at the end of the fight, you can either... I can't remember. Can you choose to kill him?
I don't recall if you
I believe you can choose to spare him, but either way, he dies, and Flowey returns, and fucking Photoshop Flowey just... So Flowey absorbs the souls of the other humans that have passed through, and becomes this...
Basically, Asgore needs 7 human souls in order to break this barrier that's keeping all of the monsters underground, and you are the 7th one. So you fight Asgore, you defeat him, and he tells you that you can stay there with him and his wife, his estranged wife. And as he's saying this to you and he's surrendering, Flowey comes back, kills him, breaks his soul, and now has all 6 human souls, and mutates into this giant fucking spider plant thing.
Photoshop Flowey is an appropriate name. Like,
yeah,
it's Akira level, what the fuck is this? And it's a great fight. And we mentioned before that Undertale uses the fact that it's a game to further its story, and this is one of those moments that's a perfect example. Like, the boss uses save states against you. Like,
yeah, he shuts your game down and deletes your save file, and now you're playing Flowey's save, and like you said, the save states, he will actually revert the fight a few seconds back and damage you all over again. It's incredible. It's just how meta it gets.
That's the perfect way to describe it. It just gets really fucking meta. And it's funny because as someone who used to emulate games before I realized that was piracy, like, I use save states all the time when I was like 10 years old to get past Super Nintendo games. Like, to have those tables turned, I mean, that's not an experience that everybody will share, but like, for me personally, that was kind of fucking hysterical.
I feel like people our generation, and I feel like it's aimed more towards our generation, so many people emulated games. I think a lot of people identify with that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, for me at least, I didn't realize that emulating games is a bad thing. I was like, man, there's all these Super Nintendo games online. I mean, it's gotta be okay, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I was also a very stupid child, so...
I was too.
Yeah, we all were. So, defeating Photoshop Flowey, it's been a while, so again, the details are a little fuzzy. But you defeat Flowey, and then you can choose to let him live or die. I wiped his ass out.
Can I even talk about this crazy detail in the fight itself that I completely missed the first time?
I probably missed it too.
So, throughout the fight, one of the 6 human souls will flash on the screen, and you'll enter this other part of the battle, and you'll be attacked by various items, and then you'll be healed by various items. I didn't realize that all of the attacks are weapons that you find in the game. And then everything that heals you is based on... I think it's based on armor that you find in the game. Like, everything you've been finding throughout is left over from these 6 humans. I think that's pretty heavily implied there.
That's fucking nuts. I did not notice that.
I think everything from the notebook to the gun to the frying pan that you find, I mean, that's crazy.
And it's just like that fucking detail. It's so good. Like now I want to go and like at least watch it or play through it again because I haven't done that enough. But yeah, I mean, you get to choose, like I was saying, to kill or release Flowey, to mercy him. I wiped his ass out. I obliterated him. And then do you get to choose to stay underground or leave?
I think you have to leave.
Okay, in that ending you have to leave.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to make it sound like I don't remember this that's not a detriment to the story or that ending. It's just that the standard ending kind of got obliterated from my brain when I did True Pacifist. So,
yeah.
But first, let's get to the let's get to the ending that both of us are too pussy to get.
Oh god.
So
I can't do it, man.
Nope, I can't either. I tried. I genuinely tried it and I got to Papyrus and I was like, no. So, for those who haven't heard, there's a version of the game called the Genocide Run, in which not only do you kill every monster that you come across, you kill every monster that can possibly spawn in an area. So you fight and you fight and you fight until you get to a point where the game tells you there's nobody left to kill.
And that is, I've only seen videos of it, but just having the screen flash like you're entering a battle but nobody come across is just kind of chilling.
It is heart-wrenching. Like, it hurt. I didn't get very far in my Genocide Run. I will say the PC that I was playing on got wiped. Like, I had to reset everything on this PC. So that's one of the main reasons my Genocide Run doesn't exist anymore, but I wouldn't have been able to do it. I got to Papyrus and it hurt to like actually fight him. So neither one
Especially
of us is strong enough to do a Genocide Run.
Well, even when you go against Papyrus, he doesn't even fight you in Genocide. He just holds his arms out. He wants to give you a hug. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you kill Papyrus. Like, you murder
have to just
Papyrus.
be a monster.
Yeah. So the thing about the Genocide Run is that as heart-wrenching as it is, and it gets painful. Like, I watched the Undying, I can't remember, it's like the Determination form or whatever.
Oh, Undying the Undying.
Yeah. It's painful. Like, there's a bunch of extra bosses that are super hard that concludes with Sans. And that fight is absolutely brutal. But I think what's the most clever aspect of the Genocide route is that that's clearly going against how the game was supposed to be played. And I think the ending was built with that in mind.
Oh, absolutely.
So the story goes that long ago, a child fell into the underground and befriended the royal family. And then that child died years later. And that was the first human to ever fall into the underground.
Yeah, I believe so.
So that was the first child to fall into the underground. Turns out, if you play the Genocide route, you end up talking to the disembodied spirit of that first child, named Chara or Kara. I don't know what the pronunciation is. And the game just sort of ends.
Yes.
Like, there's no big conclusion, there's no cutscene, there's no nothing. The game literally just ends. Chara appears and says, "Fuck you," and the game ends. Which I think...
You've basically given your soul to them.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of brilliant, because one, it's not how the game is supposed to be played. I mean, the game was built so you don't have to kill anybody, so why would you go and try to kill everyone? So, like, you don't get a happy ending. You don't get a reward for finishing that route. It just ends.
Well, thinking of the brilliance, and again, the meta of Undertale, Flowey has a lot of extra dialogue in the Genocide Run, and he says that, yeah, he has save states, he's tried to befriend everybody, and then he got bored and decided to kill everybody, and that's what brought him to this point, and that's exactly what you, the player, do.
Yeah.
So it's this commentary of just, all right, Toby Fox knew you were going to play the game again, knew you were going to get bored and say, okay, what happens if I kill everybody?
Yep.
And there's even a shout out to people like us who are watching it on YouTube. I think Flowey has a throwaway line where he's talking about people watching or people who are too afraid to do this. So it's so incredibly well crafted and so in your face, I guess, about the mechanics themselves.
Yeah. It's
in a way that fits with the universe.
You are a murderer, and the game does not let you forget that, and it goes out of its way to stuff like when it gets really meta, it goes out of its way to tell you that you are in the wrong for doing it this way. And I think that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, to talk about another game that's trying to like make you feel guilty for killing people, Uncharted 2 has like a huge focus on being like, well, how many men have you killed, Nathan Drake? And it's like, a whole lot. Did you see that part where I blew up a helicopter with a tank? But it never like addresses that. Like throughout 3 games, it's like, how many people have you killed, Nathan Drake? Well, one more now. And you shoot them in the face. And it doesn't go anywhere. But Undertale, I feel like, is sort of, I mean, it's a very extreme example, but it's like, yeah, this is what happens. Like, you killed everybody in the underground, and only a few dozen people were able to evacuate before you got there.
Yeah.
So it makes you feel like shit, and rightfully so.
Because you're doing it for absolutely no reason.
Yeah. And I think the fact that it just ends, like it just closes the game, I think that's a perfect pseudo reward for playing the game like that. Like, it's not a reward, but just like one last slap in the face. It's like, this is how you played. You don't get anything for doing it this way. We're going to fuck up your save file for every subsequent playthrough.
Oh, yeah, that is the last slap. That's like, okay, well, you got the pacifist ending again, but you still did this.
The game, unless you wipe your saves, which you're a bitch if you do, it will always remember. Like, it will always remember that you went through the underground and just murdered absolutely everybody. And that's such a fantastic commentary on, like, I will never do the genocide run because I have feelings. If you want a really good playthrough, I know I've been the first one on this channel to criticize the Grumps time and time again, but the genocide playthrough that Ross and Barry did was maybe the best example that you can find of, like, it's painful. Like, you can hear it in their voices. Like, this is not something that either one of them wants to be doing. And it's, if you really want to see the genocide run, that's what I would recommend watching.
Yeah, I think that's how I first saw it too.
That's how I've seen most of it. So that just leaves the true pacifist ending, and I'm already starting to feel like I'm going to cry.
Oh.
So, the true pacifist ending is achieved by, 1, you never kill anybody. I mean, that's kind of obvious. You complete every fight with the non-lethal solution. Then you also have to befriend 3 of the characters. So there's Papyrus, who we've talked about extensively. Papyrus is pretty simple. You just go back to his house after your quote-unquote fight, and you go through a sequence with him, and it's really funny, and
it's this incredible, hilarious date.
It's as papyrus as you could ever papyrus a papyrus.
Yes.
So after that, you also have to befriend Undyne, who is one of the king's soldiers that spends a good half an hour just trying to murder the shit out of you.
Oh, she's scary as shit when she's first introduced.
Oh, it's amazing. That's another scene that's just like, holy shit.
Like, what game am I playing?
Yeah, like, what? This isn't Goofy anymore. I miss the Goofy parts. You have to befriend her, which we mentioned before, Papyrus diving through her window in the middle of a cooking lesson. It's phenomenal. Like, if you can't play through the game, just go and watch it on YouTube. Just look up Undyne Date. It's amazing. And then there's one final one, which is the most adorable, sweet, I love this too much version, where you have to go back and go on a date with Alphys. And that that wraps up one of my favorite stories in Undertale, which is Undyne and Alphys getting together. They're such a cute. It's so cute. I love it.
It's so perfect.
I love it so much. So once you complete those 3 sections, then you're given access to the True Lab.
Which, if you've just completed that sequence with Alphys, going to the True Lab is such a brilliant move to have come right after that, because we have this hilarious scene with her and Undyne. She's such a goofy character, and then
holy
we
shit!
Go deeper.
When the fuck did I start watching Evangelion?
Yeah, a complete 180. The True Lab is some of the most genuinely creepy stuff I've seen in a video game in a while, actually.
And the True Lab is not to undermine what you just said, because holy shit, just the hand in the bed.
Yeah.
Like, there's a sequence where you sleep in a bed, like you do in many RPGs, but one of these ghostly hands comes out, and it just slides across the screen for maybe 30 seconds, and it reaches down, and you can't do anything, and it looks like it's going to, like, murder the character, and then it just tucks her in. And I'm just like, you fucker! You just put me through emotional goddamn trauma. Are you kidding me? But yeah, it's so creepy. But it basically explains what happened. Like, why the monsters are still looking for these human souls, and you know why Flowey is the way he is. And it's so goddamn good. It's so good. Like, I can't do it justice just talking about it.
No.
Like, again, it's one of those moments where you realize that Undertale was made to be a game, and that interaction is crucial to it. Like, you will never feel the same way watching that as you would playing it, because playing it is fucking horrifying. Like, it is legitimately scary.
Thinking of character connections, earlier talked about Snowdrake and Snowdrake's father, and then in the True Lab, I think it's Snowdrake's mother that you meet. And you meet these melted, I think they're called amalgamates.
Yeah, or amalgamates, something like that.
And they're these melted together creatures, and it's the saddest, creepiest, weirdest thing, but you find out why Alphys thinks of herself as such a failure, why she's ignoring these letters, people asking about their family members, what happened to them, because Alphys screwed up. She's genuinely failed, and you just totally understand that aspect of her character now.
Yeah, and it's not something that feels out of place. Like you said, it's a huge tonal shift from what immediately preceded it, and yet it still makes sense. Like, it explains a lot of, like, oh, well, yeah, holy shit, that makes sense. And it's just so well done. Like, you learn that they tried to get out of the underground without human souls. And Alphys experimented on other monsters with this force known as determination. And it created these horrible amalgamates. And then it also created Flowey. And what's perfect about the Flowey reveal is that it's clear. By this point, it's clear you know who Flowey is. Like, and I'll get to that in a minute. You know who Flowey is. But it's obvious that when the experiments were happening, Alphys had no idea who she had just brought back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that sort of dramatic irony that's so good, and it's like, yes, this is perfect, and also my heart just exploded into a million little pieces, and I hate everything. So it's just... The True Lab is one of the best moments in the game. It's one of my favorite moments in the last several years in terms of gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And what follows it is... So it's no secret that I love Gurren Lagann. And Gurren Lagann ultimately is a show about pushing further and, like, relying on the bonds that you've made and the people around you to push further than you could have ever gone on your own. And in a similar sense, the true pacifist ending of Undertale is exactly the same thing, and that's why I love it so much. No fucking secret. I really like Gurren Lagann. I like Gurren Lagann more than anybody reasonably should. So to see something that fits with that thematically, not in execution, but thematically, yeah, I'm gonna fucking love it. That's just how it is.
I mean, you finally get back to the seal that's keeping everybody underground, and everyone you've befriended throughout the game comes to your aid, but Flowey's there, and this time, instead of just taking the 6 human souls, he has everybody's soul.
He takes everybody's soul in the underground, and he becomes... So, we spoke about it before. When the first human fell into the underground, she befriended this young boy named Asriel. And then, I believe... Let me look it up real fast. I believe Asriel dies.
The human gets sick and dies.
Okay.
But the human wanted to see the flowers from their hometown one more time. So Asriel absorbs the human's soul, breaks through the barrier, and tries to put the human to rest. Other humans see Asriel. I think...
Yes,
Asriel
they see Asriel, and then...
Because Asriel has changed. He, absorbing the soul made him turn into this more hideous creature.
Yes, and then the humans assume that he killed Chara, the first human, and so they end up lethally wounding him, and then he sort of disintegrates, and, everybody assumes that he's dead, and then...
Well, that's one of the brilliant things is... earlier in the game, we learned that when monsters die, they turn into dust.
Yes.
And we also learned that that dust is spread upon the thing that the monster loved most.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this recurring image of golden flowers. The king loves these flowers. He has like a whole garden. They're all over his house. So that's how you learn in the true lab exactly who Flowey is. Like, Asriel must have been spread upon these flowers, and it makes so much sense.
And then, so his dust is spread upon the flowers that Alphys had been experimenting on with determination, and that's what ultimately brought Flowey back as sort of this homicidal maniac. And then, once he absorbs the souls of everyone in the underground, I think they call him the god of hyperdeath.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
He gets his original body back, and then he gets this crazy new body. And then you basically Falcon Punch him into the sun. And again, I can't do this justice just by talking about it. Like, this is something you have to go play. The combination, the art, the music, the writing, everything. It's so fucking perfect, and I love it. And if I think about it too hard, I'm going to start crying.
Well, the final fight is just this crazy bullet hell, but you cannot die. You're full of so much determination. You have to actually free all of your friends that you've made throughout your journey, because they're still captured by Flowey. They're in this sort of state where they don't know you, they don't know who they are.
Yeah.
And then you break the seal. Or Asriel breaks the seal, after you kind of tell him to calm the fuck down for a sec.
And then, basically, the seal is broken. Everybody goes to the surface, and it's a perfect happy ending. Like, it's the sort of ending where it does a thing I love, where it goes through the credits and it shows everybody in their new sort of lives. Like Onion Sang
driving his cool boy car.
His cool dude car. Onion Sang gets to live in the ocean.
It's so good.
But it's a great ending, and it's so cute and heartwarming, and it feels like a perfect culmination to the True Pacifist run.
Although it's a little bittersweet, because I'm sure you did what I did, Steve. And I went throughout all of the areas we had been before, and I talked to NPCs.
Yep.
I was like, is there any reward for going back all the way to the beginning, even though it's super tedious?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
So basically, once you've beaten the game, you get a choice. You could say, hey, I want to stay in the underground for a little while longer, or you can go to the ending. So what happens is, if you decide to stay for a little while, you can go back through the entire game and talk to every NPC throughout the entire game, and they all have unique dialogue. it's literally like everybody. Like, you'll probably be doing it for a good hour.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a couple parts like the amalgamates from the True Lab end up in Snowden Town with their families again.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yep. Like the little kid that the fan of Undyne that was following you around, like, he freaks the fuck out because now you're friends with Undyne. Like, Alphys and Undyne end up together. But then you get all the way back to the very, very beginning of the game, and you find Asriel sitting in the flower patch.
Steve needs a moment.
Steve needs several moments.
And it's the most heartbreaking thing, because Asriel knows he's about to turn back into Flowey. He knows his soul's not going to last, and he's going to lose his humanity again, or monster manity again, I suppose. And he can't come with you, and it's just absolutely soul-crushing, but it's oh god, it's so well done. It's so bittersweet.
It's you know it's the right thing. Like, he can't survive without the souls of everybody, and it's not like you can't justify giving everybody's souls so that Asriel can stay in this temporary form. But it's like, even after all that, it's, you know, it sucks. Like, you don't want him to suffer anymore.
And just think, you know, his mom and dad don't even know he's back.
Yeah.
They have no idea.
You're the only one who knows that Asriel exists after the fight for however long he's got. And it's painful. It's one last flick to the ball sack. But yeah, it's painful. I mean, the overall ending is still, like, for me, it was enough that didn't take away from the ending, but it was one last little needle in the arm. It was just like, why?
So then you can leave the underground. They give you a choice. You can either stay with Toriel or you don't have to. I don't know what happens if you don't.
I think you try to go back to your family. I think I stayed with Toriel because I don't know. To me, it felt like they implied that Frisk, the main character, was without a family.
Yeah.
So to me, it made more sense to stay with Toriel and Asgore. So that's what I picked.
Yeah, I think that's what everybody picked.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're not leaving Goat Mom.
No. I will say, speaking of Goat Mom, I accidentally killed her the first time. Because it did that, I guess I just happened to time it perfectly, and it did like 6 billion damage. And I was like, what happened? What? What's going on? I didn't mean to do that.
I feel like in a completely blind run, it almost feels like it's designed where you are supposed to kill her the first time.
Yeah.
Before you really know the rules.
Yeah.
Because Toby Fox is a bastard.
Yeah, a little bit. So I first completed Undertale on, I have a PC tower and a laptop that I travel with. I first completed it on my laptop. And there's one last interesting thing about the True Pacifist run, and that's, it's the only way you can truly reset your game. If you're doing a vanilla True Pacifist run, it is the only way you can genuinely reset your files without, you know, going into the folders and fucking around with everything. That is the reason that I can no longer play Undertale on my laptop. Because I refuse. It basically explains, hey, you can reset everything. Everything. Absolutely everything. You can get a clean slate. But that means that you're erasing everybody's happy ending. It means that you're erasing everything that you did and all the people that you saved. And it means that you're putting everybody's lives back to how they were before they met you. And that's why I won't ever play it on my laptop again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's
that's why I haven't touched it.
Yeah, I can't do that. Like, yeah, I can't go back.
Flowey actually comes out and, like, begs you not to play the game again.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, on one hand, you could say, oh, well, that's a really shitty way to get people to play your game again. But on the other hand, it's also a testament to just how much you fucking care about these characters, because I haven't touched it on my laptop again. I won't. Like, I won't do that to those characters. And it's a goofy 8-bit fucking skeleton. Like, there's a line in the game where if we have a problem, a skeleton will tell a fish lady about it. That's the game I care about too much to ever play it on my laptop again. I can't do it. I can't. And I won't.
You don't ever have to. Okay, Steve.
So that was, again, one last little thing for this amazing fucking game. And I think we're about at time. We've had plenty of technical difficulties, so I have no fucking idea how long this podcast is going to be at this point. But it's just, I don't know if we'll do game-specific podcasts very often. I mean, just the idea of playing the same game at the same time and having the money to do that is kind of ridiculous at this point. It'd be cool. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed this style of podcast, but the reason we did it is we both played through Undertale and we felt such a connection to it. And it's a lot of people seem to have felt the same way, which is great. Like, this is a game that you should play. It doesn't matter if you're someone who plays games. It doesn't matter if you don't like RPGs. If all you've ever done is play Call of Duty and Gears of War, play Undertale. Like, this is a game I cannot stress this enough. Everybody should play it. Everybody. It is that good. It's that well made. It's that enjoyable. And if we can sit here and talk, I feel like I could keep going. Like, I could ramble on and on and on about this game for another hour. Everybody should play it.
I mean, the fact that we're recording this 15 months after its release and we're still talking so passionately about it is a testament to how amazing it is.
I can't remember the last game that I connected to like Undertale. Like, I've always been, talking about your favorite game of all time is always hard because there's so many factors that go into it. Is it Halo, which made me sort of expand my way of thinking about games? Is it Super Metroid, which is arguably the best designed game in history? Is it Metal Gear Solid, which is like, that's the first time I ever connected to a story across multiple games? Is it Final Fantasy VII, the first RPG I ever played? But there's something about Undertale that, like, it still resonates with me. And I still think about it as this experience. It's not just a game, and this is going to sound like really sappy and really emotional, but for me, it wasn't just, I played through this great RPG. I played through this really funny game that got really emotional at some point. This was like, I'm not going to go so far as to say it changed my life, but it made an impact at the very least. And like Bill said, if we can be talking about this for an hour and still have stuff that we didn't get to or we don't want to ramble on like idiots about. God, I really like Megalovania. Have you guys listened to that track yet?
Oh, it's so good. There's so many things to talk about in this game that, we couldn't cover it all in one podcast, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, new series, Undertale podcast. Let's talk about Undyne this week. I like fish, but not fish ladies.
You're fired.
Oh. So, as always, I don't know when the next podcast will be. I don't know what the next podcast will be on. I have a number of topics that I've saved.
It'll be on the internet, YouTube, and possibly another service.
Okay. I'm going to beat Bill to death with his own keyboard. This has been the Broken Base Podcast. We've been talking about Undertale for way too long. If you'd like to listen to all of our podcasts, you can go to youtube.com/brokenbase, or assuming that it's been fixed at this point, brokenbase.com. You can find all of our videos at both of those places because we like to make things convenient for you guys. All right, everybody. That's it for Steve. Now it's time for Bill.
That's it for Bill, too. It's the Bill podcast. Let's get the fuck out of this.
Yeah, all right. We'll see you guys next time.
We love you.
Yeah, I guess.
I do.